Welcome into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and I got my guy Joshua Perry riding shotgun with us. Huge show today. Break down a little bit of pro day, updates with spring ball. We're gonna have Steele Chambers on, Ohio State linebacker, formerly running back, early in his career. Talk about his pre-combine and draft prep, what he's been up to, his experiences at Ohio State. Very interesting and unique guy, and roommates with the guy we had on prior last week, Cade Stover, those two with Tommy Eichenberg. So some great little stories of some of the stuff that they got into. But without any further ado, Joshua, before we get into spring ball, I'd like to congratulate you welcoming the newest member of your family, you and your lovely wife, Maddie, welcoming in a child here last week. How has everything been going? And are we getting enough sleep?
Yeah, we're managing on the sleep front. Certainly difficult. They tell you what's going to happen. You don't believe them until it actually happens. It's been great though. He's a great little guy. We named him James Thomas, James after my father. Bobby, I got to tell you, he came out. He's lean. He's got long arms. He's got big hands and big feet. So he takes after me just a little bit. But it's been fun. We finished up with some tummy time before I came down here to record. So super exciting.
Tummy time. I love it, dude. You're a full-on dad now. That's a phrase like that's something I had like in the back pocket. I used a long time for about a decade, and now that my youngest is 7, kind of moved past all that, and I'm trying to make sure that he's not calling me bro and man, and he's taking a shower and like trying to have proper hygiene. But you'll get to that point at some point. I had him over at practice here at Ohio State on Saturday, and what was tremendous, obviously a packed day, Joshua, and it was cool because there was a ton of former players. Teammate of mine, Doug Dash, was there. Malcolm Jenkins in the house, Will Allen in the house, Ty Howard, Joey Galloway. I mean, I don't even want to leave any. There were so many guys that were just running around. Trevor Robinson, former linebacker that I played with, just great dudes all around. Packed house, a lot of recruits there as well. And I'm gonna tell you this: I've been waxing poetically about this man because I don't know what else to say, but I've never really like truly believed in like the recruiting rankings on based upon like the actual number. Like, what's the difference between the number one recruit and the number 38 recruit and 51st recruit? One guy plays O line, one guy plays running back, one guy's a DB. You know what I'm saying? Like quarterback. What does all that mean? One guy's in Cali, one guy's in rural Georgia, one guy might be in Jersey. Like, how do you like compare all these? And I say all that with the premise that I watched Carnell Tate last year and he was really
Mhm.
good really early. And he had some physical maturity to do because he wasn't necessarily big enough and he looks really good in the spring. But Jeremiah Smith, I'm telling you, man, I've watched this guy. And I don't know. I mean, he was the quote number one player, Joshua. And I don't have any other thing to guard, like base that against other than the fact that I've watched him play. And if you told me the guy was a senior and would have won the Bolitnikoff as a junior, I may believe you at this point.
Yeah, I've heard nothing but great things, and like I need to get back to Columbus just so I can see him in person because I've watched the videos and I've seen the photographs, and the guy looks ridiculous for an early enrollee freshman. That's the other part about it is like he just got on campus and he already looks like a grown man. And basically, from everything that I'm hearing and things that I get to see online, it's like you got to find a way to get a guy like that on the football field, and sometimes the biggest hurdle and obstacle is the fact that guys are learning how to be a collegiate athlete and a college student, and they're trying to pick up, the nuance of the game. And sometimes you just got to say, listen, I don't know what it is. We got to find a way to get this dude on the field. We'll make it simple, whatever we got to do, because he looks like he could be a game changer.
Well, and you put him and Carnell Tate like on your two outside receivers, and you can get in it. So they have a bunch of guys that are really good, by the way. And so it's like it's not you just have 3 or 4. I mean, there's really probably 5 or 6 that you think you could get on the field and be heavy contributors. But I think him and Carnell Tate might be the two most impressive, like outside receivers. When you talk about size, frame, and just the one thing that's really impressive is how competitive they are, because they're
Mm-hmm.
going against Davidson Ingbenuson, Denzel Burke, um, Jeremiah, Jeremiah or Jermaine Matthews, rather. Like all these guys, they've even been playing Jordan Hancock some on the outside. They've got dudes, man, and these guys are going at it and they're winning. And what's awesome, Joshua, that like I watched Jeremiah Smith, get him on a double move, and dude, like we're throwing the football back in the air at the defense afterwards. Like there's an attitude about it that's refreshing with the competition.
Man, it's the greatest thing. And I felt like, people always say, oh, practice felt like it was harder than the games. It's how I felt a lot of times. And part of it is a collection of talent that's there. But like when you spend enough time around somebody, you get hyper competitive and like you love your brothers, but like you just want to beat a guy sometimes. And like you watched it. I was there on the football field while it happened. I watched Eli Apple and Mike Thomas go at it so many times, and those dudes were doing the same thing. Eli would get a PBU, and he's standing over Mike Thomas. Mike can't stand that kind of stuff. So Mike was funny. He would catch the ball, stop running, just throw it straight at Eli, and then go run over and talk to Coach Combs. And it's like you got to make sure that you govern that a little bit because you can't have guys acting out in games. But there's also a part of you where it's like, we're going to let this go. We're going to let these guys compete as hard as they can. And it's really good for developing a team.
It's phenomenal. And then another guy who's developing, Sonny Styles. And I was just curious. Everybody's been like hyper focused on him. And I want to make sure I'm not shortchanging. Like Cody Simon's been the glue in the middle, veteran
Yep.
guy, knows what to do. They've been moving CJ Hicks around a little bit to their three linebacker sets, and CJ's looked really good as well. But Sonny, Joshua, you when you get in the box, because you're a guy that played back early, that stuff happens fast. And I've been amazed at his reflexes. He's bent really well. And one of the things he's done, and I've watched him like setting up blocks to know when, hey, when do I need to strike and move, or when can I use my athleticism, squeeze, and then bend around as well.
Yeah, I'm telling you, and it's one of those things that, part of it is coaching. The other part of it is just having a feel for the game. And I think that when you're a guy who's moving closer to the box, you played safety. I do think that there's some of that to your game because at some point when you're a safety, you got to approach the line of scrimmage and you got to be able to take a guy on. And you're thinking, okay, do I have to square this guy up or can I just dip and rip? Is the ball in phase, out of phase? I also know that James Laurinaitis was, one of those guys when I was playing who would talk about that kind of stuff. And he's like, if you can see the running back and you got some space, dip and rip. Other times you got to square a guy up. And so I think it's the right combination. And I'm certainly excited to see the fact that he is blossoming into this new role.
It's been tremendous. So excited to see him. Caleb Downs obviously coming in, giving them flexibility. He's as advertised. One of the issues people have talked about is the offensive line. And I want to talk about that in concert with Chip Kelly because, practice says the tone different. I don't think it's the tone different, but the running style and schemes of what they're doing, a lot of polars, a lot of movement has been good, but they're still struggling a little bit to kind of find. And this is going to be a whole spring process, I feel, where they're looking, Joshua, trying to figure out what does that combination on the right side look at? Is it Luke Montgomery in their guard? Is it Fryer at tackle? Is it Fryer at guard? Do they have Tegra Shabola out there? I mean, and this like they're trying to mix and match and pair that together. And the sad thing is, it's really hard to do against the defensive line because
Yeah.
they're making them all look foolish. And I don't know if they can really get a great assessment based upon the competition because it's so overwhelming at points.
Well, that's how you get better, though, right? Like, and I know when you're in offense, you want to have a clean look and you want to be able to get guys fitting into the right place. But there's also a certain point of, all right, if you're getting your butt whooped, what are you going to end up doing? And so the mixing and matching, I think, is good. Probably seeing a little heavier dose of inside drill than you typically would just to get those guys reps. But Bobby, as you know, the Saturday scrimmages are where
Yeah.
a lot of you can find out a lot about guys because you're really kind of taking that governor off and you're telling the guys, listen, we're going full speed like it's a game rep. And when you put them in that crucible, ultimately you find the guys that respond.
It's been awesome. It's been fun to watch. And today, like I said, Saturday, the practice was really exciting. It was fun. There's a lot of juice there. Some issues, but a lot of great positive things. So we'll continue to dive into that. Up next, we're going to have Steele Chambers talk about his experiences here at Ohio State, what that was like. Tommy, Cade, the whole crew together. We have that next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. The Bobby Carpenter Show. I got my man Joshua Perry, new minted father, and we're pleased to welcome in Steele Chambers. Last week we had on his roommate Cade Stover. There's two members of their little triumvirate. They got Tommy Eichenberg. All the guys live together. All played linebacker at Ohio State at some point in time in their career. Steele, how's the combine training been going? How's everything since kind of the season wrapped up?
It's been good, man. It's interesting just having like so much free time and not having school at all. That's nice. So I mean, I'm working out, doing a bunch of stuff, and then just kind of having fun.
All right, take us through the pro day experience. You just wrapped up here, had a lot of personnel in town, kind of a gathering spot for all the guys that you played ball with for a bunch of years. Tell us about pro day.
Yep. It was cool, man. It was interesting kind of being on the other side of it because I mean, for 5 years, I was the guy like watching everyone else do their pro day. So it was interesting going out there, but I mean, it was fun. Ohio State, it's almost kind of like a little party, just everyone cheering you on while you're doing all your stuff. So it was a great experience. It was cool seeing like CJ, DeJuan, a bunch of guys coming back and then just showing support.
So do you think, and that's a good point because Ohio State, it's obviously huge every year, and you get a chance to watch it as a current player. Do you think watching it as a player kind of helped prepare you for maybe everything that was going to happen?
Probably. I mean, you just kind of get a sense of what you're going to be doing, the order of it, and then just you get a sense of like the atmosphere you're going to be in.
All right, so you had go ahead.
Was the because following up with that a little bit, still was the combine everything you thought it would be? I know, for all of these guys coming up, like, as you're in high school, you go to college, like, man, I'm gonna go to the NFL combine, like go show out, you meet with all these people. What was that experience like? And was that everything that you anticipated it being?
It was everything and then more. I mean, there are times it got weird as far as like stripping down, having to pose in front of all the teams. But I mean, I heard about that whenever I was going into it. I didn't realize you'd literally just be stripping down your underwear probably like 3 or 4 times throughout the process. But I mean, it was awesome. I know the group of linebackers that was there were just a bunch of good guys. So it was a great time. Plus, I was roomming with Tommy the whole time. So it's like,
Wait,
I was like, I was
they
at
put
home.
you and Tommy together?
Yeah, me and Tommy were together, same room.
Oh, see,
See,
that's
nobody
I
gets
can't,
that comfortable at the combine. Like that never happens.
no, No, I mean it's weird. I felt like I was still at home. I mean we sleep probably like 15 feet away from each other. So I don't know. I felt like I had home court territory or something.
I love that. I mean, you mentioned just the atmosphere there. It's a human meat market. They got you doing stuff you'll never do anywhere else. So always unique there. But just touching back on pro day. So one of the things quarterbacks like to do, Bobby, you know this, and still you probably know it too, is they script up what they're going to throw and all the different routes, and they want to go through their progressions. And I feel like as linebackers, we don't get as much of a say in what the workout looks like. But yeah, Coach Laurinaitis taking you through some of the drills there. Was there any input collaboration wise on what you got to do for Pro Day?
Oh yeah, probably like a couple days before. Me, him, Tommy, and then our buddy Ryan Batch, we all got together, just talked about what we wanted to do, and then we had the freedom basically to choose whatever drills we wanted. So we had complete freedom to do whatever we wanted.
That's pretty good. Gosh, I don't remember having that much control. It's changed a lot. Still, you're in a player centric time of the sports world, which is fantastic.
Mm.
Let's talk a little bit because we talked to Kate about this last show because he had a unique journey coming in as a linebacker, DN, tight end, back to linebacker, back to tight end. I mean, it's just wild time. No, yours not quite as exotic, but you were a dual threat guy in high school, linebacker, running back. You come here, you play running back for a couple years. What was that transition like playing running back, moving to linebacker? How did that all kind of happen? And you know, why did it take so long or why did it happen at all in your mind?
I mean, overall transition, it sucked at first. I mean, I wasn't used to a lot of stuff that they wanted me to do at linebacker, but I mean, over time I started to get used to it. But it started going into my junior year. During spring ball, we started having talks about possibly making a change because we're a little thin at running back. I mean, at linebacker. So talked to Coach. They caught the Coach Washington, who was our linebacker coach at the time. I was hard headed, but so I didn't want to make the change at first. So it took me probably another 2 or 3 months. And then in the summer, they came to me again with the same offer. And then after seeing Travion Henderson running the ball a full spring, I realized I wasn't going to play at all running back. So talked to my parents a little bit, realized that was probably the best move for me, and made the switch.
All right, so let's talk about this. I played a little running back in high school, and I don't know, Bobby, you were a really good athlete, so you're probably all over the offense as well. But I hear coaches that say that they like to recruit linebackers that played running back because they can cut and they've got vision and everything else. Did you feel like your experience coming in as a running back really did help in terms of the way you saw the game from a defensive perspective?
Yeah, there were times definitely in a few games whenever like I'd see like a little adjustment a running back might make like in the middle of a play, and then I can see what he's doing. But it certainly helps having that running back background and then being able to apply it at linebacker.
So you mentioned you and Tommy, rooming together at the combine. You room together currently with Cade. And what was that like when you flipped over to linebacker? I mean, was Tommy an advocate for it? I mean, he'd have his arm around you. Was he your biggest fan, helping you out? Kind of how did that interaction? And was he pushing you to go there anyway?
No, he didn't push me at all. But I mean, yeah, whenever I made the change, he was big and just helping me. It was him, Cody, and just the entire linebacker room helped me out. I mean, as you guys know as much as anyone, just the entire Ohio State program, you're just going to have guys that are behind you no matter what happens. So that's what I felt whenever I made the change.
All right, Steele, I got to ask you this question. This is always an interesting one. So I felt like when I left the Woody, I realized how many hours there actually were in a day, right? You spend so much time and they dominate your time. Now you got free time as you're training for the
Oh yeah.
NFL here. So what have been your favorite hobbies? Have you learned anything about yourself that you wouldn't have known without having some free time on your hands?
I wouldn't say I learned anything. I mean, right now I'm just waiting for the weather to get better so I can jump in the river or something. But I mean, yeah, I'm learning the guitar right now. I'm doing that. I'm starting to get a lot more into reading. I'm watching movies and stuff. I don't know. I'm just finding stuff to fill in time of the day.
You're definitely an interesting guy when it comes to that. Still, like, what are some of the movies? What are some of the things we're watching? What do we enjoy the most?
I don't know. It's a wide variety. I watched Tommy Boy the other day. That's a great movie.
For the first
Uh,
time,
yeah, for the first time.
did you like it? I mean, that movie's 30 years old, and I had my
No,
7-year-old watch. He loved it.
it's a fantastic movie. Yeah, I doing that. I might watch Roadhouse or something. I see Conor McGregor. He started acting, so I gotta watch that. Uh, Probably just watch March Madness, honestly, for the rest of the week. I don't know. I just put on whatever I think's interesting.
It's interesting stuff there. Have you seen the original Roadhouse still?
No, Patrick
Wait,
Swayze.
yeah, so you're gonna watch the new one without watching the original?
Yeah, it's Conor McGregor. I'm gonna watch it.
Don't feel bad. I haven't seen Roadhouse. I've not seen Tommy Boy either. So, I got some catching up to do too.
I'm pretty sure this next Roadhouse is gonna be terrible. But I mean, again, Conor McGregor. Go watch one of my most favorite fighters go and act. I got to be there.
Well, that's tremendous. All right, well, we're gonna keep you for the next segment here. We'll put a pin in this because I want to start talking to you a little bit about your roommates. I know you've got some eclectic music taste, Steele, so we're gonna dive into that and find out a little bit more on the personal side and maybe some of the stuff about you growing up and everything else. So we'll get all that here coming up. More with Steele Chambers on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, welcome back in to the program. Still here with our guy, Steele Chambers, one of the best dudes. Really interesting guy that I enjoy hanging out with. And Steele, you're kind of an old soul, at least from what I've gathered. I've got a chance to talk to your mom about it a little too, and she seems to kind of be on that same plane. You talk about movies, talk about music. What if you were just to throw on some music to hang out? What are we putting on the playlist? Like, what does that look like? Curate me a playlist for you of like some of your favorite stuff.
Well, I mean, where am I?
Let's say we're hanging out. Let's do like a little hangout time. Like maybe I don't know. You say you like to be on the river. What are you going to put on if you're going to be in the water
Ooh.
outside, something like that?
Oh gosh. Probably if we're just floating down the river, probably like just some Chris Stapleton or something.
Chris Stapleton. What are we working out to?
Chris Stapleton.
All right,
I'll,
let's
I'll,
say
I'll go
you're
for it.
getting ready to kick back, maybe a little pregame with the boys. What are you listening to?
What do you mean, like before a game, or what do you mean pregame?
No, I mean pregame as in we're getting ready to go hit High Street.
Oh goodness. Oh man, yeah, I haven't done that in a while. Oh gosh. Luke Combs, Chris Stapleton.
Luke Combs. Now,
I
listen.
I don't know. Like I don't. I listen to country and folk, and then just whatever else I think is good.
Well, the one other thing that I've noticed, man, you got like a love for 80s music, which like me, like that was stuff when I was like real young and my parents used to listen to when I
Yeah.
was in the car. But I mean, I went over to your place, you and Tom and Kay are playing cards and you've got like the Top Gun soundtrack on the original one, not the new one.
Well, yeah, I think you came after like we watched it a couple days beforehand. So yeah, I'd been listening to that soundtrack for probably 2 weeks after I watched that movie.
Okay. So we do have that little like 80s vibe here. Cause I'm just trying to kind of figure it out still. Cause you've got the long, like, what's the deal? We got the long hair. We've kind of had that forever. Um, like, is that part of who you are? When did you grow it out long? Like, kind of, where's that coming from? Because I had long hair in college, and eventually I cut it when I got done playing. But kind of, where are the origins of that?
I was born with a head full of hair, and I just kind of kept it and let it grow. And I just don't cut it. I cut the sides. Like I let my mom cut the sides. That's it.
This is amazing. It's amazing stuff. I went through the long hair deal too. It's an emotional experience, I think, for the parents at times when you cut the hair down. My mom didn't like when I got rid of my hair.
Yeah, I wanted to cut my hair for some unknown reason, and my parents convinced me not to, and I'm very thankful for that because I don't know what I look like with short hair.
That's funny. So, still, you're a Georgia guy. How do we end up at Ohio State?
Just good people. My dad told me during the recruiting process to not really care about like where I'm going as far as like if I go to the West Coast, stay down south. He just said follow the good people and you'll have a good time, and that's what I did.
All right, lean into that a little bit more here, because I know the locker room that I was a part of feels very special. My best friends to this day are guys that I played with. I've been able to connect with guys from different eras of ball. Obviously, you and I are connected with Bobby, never played with one another. What do you think makes Ohio State such a different place than other places you visited when you were getting recruited?
I mean, yeah, you see the difference whenever you're like going on visits, but I kind of saw the difference after I left and started training down in Florida for the combine. It's just I don't know, there's tight knit groups of people, but it's kind of different when you come here. Like they preach brotherhood and all these different programs, but I truly feel that like whenever I'm here, like the guys I'm around, I mean, most of the guys I hang out with, they're all going to be in my wedding. I'm rooming with two of my best men at my wedding. I mean, these are guys that you're going to be with your whole life. And I mean, I see like teammates that were training during combine prep, and you could tell they were close, but I don't know. Just from my perspective, it just didn't feel the same as like how I am with like these guys.
So,
So
go ahead.
yeah, I'm just saying, just the brotherhood. That's a huge thing for me.
Yeah, and I think Joshua echoed that. I mean, it's similar with me, and you see Schlegs and I interact with each other still, and like how we play together. AJ, getting to meet Joshua, like, and the connectivity beyond generations is also what's
Oh yeah.
tremendous. But you talked about living with two of your best friends. Give me a great Tommy story, maybe a great Cade story. I mean, you guys are all very unique individuals, and so I'm trying to like figure out here kind of how this whole dynamic fits together.
Let me think. Oh, let's see. I think it was like 3 years ago whenever we had that snow day and they canceled school, canceled classes and everything. We had to make the most of that. So our other roommate at the time, Bryson Shaw, he had a Jeep. So we went around, we were stealing flags off sororities' houses, and we decided to tie them all up and put them to the back of his Jeep and connect a tire to it. And since there was no one on the streets, we would just fly down the road with the Jeep connected with all the flags and the tire. And then we sit on the tire. We just roll down the road.
Bobby, does this sound like something you would have done
That
back when you
that
were in school?
that 100% sounds like something I would have done, but
And
still, I thought
there
you
were a
were
couple
smarter
close
than that.
calls. What do you mean? I mean, it's fun. There were a couple close calls. Almost hit a dump truck. Not dump truck. What do you call it? A dumpster. My bad. Yeah, we almost
Dumps.
got hit. Almost hit a dumpster a couple times because it was a pretty shallow alley or whatever. So it was a fun time though.
Oh my gosh, that
It's
that is
amazing. It is absolutely amazing.
uh so one of the other things that kind of changed here last year for you, Jim Knowles, you've been in his defense for a while, but the addition of bringing in James Laurinaitis to coach you, he's a guy that I played with. He was a freshman my senior year, you know, and played obviously a long time in the NFL. Getting back to Ohio State, what was that relationship like with you guys, and what was it like with him as your coach?
It was awesome. We hit it off right off the bat. I mean, it's basically like having just an older version of us up there coaching us. Because I mean, we can joke with the guy, but at the same time, like whenever we needed to focus up, he knows how to like get us like locked into what we need to learn. So I mean, it was a fantastic move by Ohio State finally hiring him as a linebacker coach, and I mean, I think he's going to do wonders for the program.
The guy that brought you in, Tony Alford, left. He
Yep.
went to Michigan. it just happened here fairly recently. Kind of your feelings on that. Obviously, your close guy that recruited you, and Joshua and I both spoke very glowingly of him because he's a great guy.
Mm.
Just kind of surprised to see that, or was it a little shocked, or what?
Yeah, very shocked. But I mean, I've got no hate in my heart. So I sent him a text. I figured he wasn't going to shoot me anything because he's probably getting grilled right now by all of Ohio. So I sent him a text basically saying I love him. He was my first coach in college and he's always going to be. So yeah, I've got no hate towards him, man. Hell of a dude.
He's a great guy. One of my
He really
favorites.
is. He really is.
It's awesome. You kind of still have that same relationship there, obviously, with him still, even after leaving. Kind of closing with this, we appreciate the time today. Is you look back, like kind of on your career at Ohio State, kind of what, let's say, how would you define it? But like your memories of everything that happened, the good, the bad, the relationships you've created. I mean, how would you kind of sum that up? How do you kind of define, the last 5 years of your life?
That's a loaded question. I'd say I mean, everything you go through in college, especially at a program like this, it's just getting you prepared for the next level in life. Because, I mean, if you're able to get through 5 years of mat drills, Coach Mick screaming at you, these crazy games, crazy fans DMing you, crazy stuff after you lose, just being able to handle all that stuff and just go at life with a smile on your face. If you can apply that to the next level, I mean, you're going to be a happy dude in life. So that's kind of how I see it.
Absolutely. And then one question I wish I would ask Cade, and I'm going to get it to you. When you're done playing football, what do you see yourself doing?
Uh, I'll be proud. I hope I'm in Montana, rocking chair, a couple dogs, and a big old lake in front of me, man.
That's
Oh,
pretty good.
goodness.
I love
That's
that.
that's the goal.
That's fantastic. And yeah, you can have a little ranch there with Tommy and Cade right by. You guys can all hang out and ride
Oh yeah,
horses.
we'll just have a whole bunch of acres. We'll just be neighbors again.
That'll be fantastic. Well, still, we
Oh
appreciate
yeah,
the time today, man. Thank you for spending it with Joshua and I and kind of talking about your time at Ohio State and everything moving forward, man. So really appreciate it. And excited to see what happens for you at the next level.
yes sir. Appreciate you guys.
All right, coming up next, we will dive in to a little bit of pro day, some NCAA headlines, a lot of stuff here. All that coming up next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Welcome back into the Bobby Carpenter Show, and something that we talked about in the last show leading up to Pro Day at Ohio State. It was March 20th on Wednesday. And maybe not, Joshua, the crazy numbers that we've seen in the past. Like last year, when you have a top 5 quarterback,
Yep.
you're going to have head coaches, you're going to have GMs, heck, you're going to have owners that are going to be, I believe Tepper even was, there last year, the Carolina Panthers owner probably regrets not taking CJ as opposed to
Mess
Bryce
that
Young.
one up.
That's just how you know what, CJ though, at pro day, at practice on Saturday, which is awesome to see guys like that coming back. Steele talked about Dwan Jones being there too. Like, I don't think these guys realize, because they just come back to see their dudes, but like when you have recruits there and just
Yeah.
the knowledge you can pour in, how great it was. But I think there was 60-ish NFL coaches and scouts there, no head coaches, no GMs. One of the guys I think everybody wanted to look at though was Mike Hall. Joshua thought he looked really good. Ran a 4.840, weighed like 299, 300 pounds, jumped well, moved well, like checked all the boxes. Now it's just going to be his injury issues and how comfortable people are with those.
We talked about it, man. I felt like working out was one of the best things that he could do because you get to match up what you see on tape with what actually exists in person. And he is a phenomenal athlete on the interior of the defensive line. And I mean, you look at some of the contracts that have been handed out to some of those guys, like people want guys who can get after the quarterback and be disruptive from the interior. And quite frankly, they don't care if you're 320 pounds. You don't need to be anymore as long as you can give the offensive lineman trouble. So I'm super excited to see that he performed well. Saw some of the other numbers that came out of there. Looked really good for a lot of guys. I think just confirming who they are and what they can provide at the pro level. One of the interesting things is I think this was the first time a lot of people got a look at Will Howard tossing the rock around, and I heard some good things about him too. So here we go. I mean, looks like things are looking up.
So they had, you always have your quarterbacks throw. So Cade Stover out there, Xavier Johnson out there for Ohio State. And so they had Will Howard and um,
Devin
Devin
Brown.
Brown throwing a little bit. And I thought both those guys, like, I think people were kind of impressed, especially with Will and Devin looked good too. And I asked him at Mecca, like, why didn't you run? Because in the past they'd hop in there. He said no one asked him, but I mean those guys were getting gas. Cade looked good though. I thought Xavier looks really nice running routes. I think that is something positionally as far as those guys. When people look at them in person, I think that does matter for their positions when you watch them run routes and how they can look, and especially with the quarterbacks looking impressive as well.
Yeah, I mean, we talked about Cade too, and we talked about it with him when we had him on the show. But I think a lot of people are underselling what he provides from an athletic standpoint, right? And so again, running around and looking fluid and looking smooth, and people seeing how a big body can move and catch the ball the way that he does. Like I think he's a guy that some people are probably going to end up passing on that should take a tight end like him. They'll regret it.
One of the other things that was cool is Mike Hall, the only defensive lineman. So, how hard those people don't realize pro day is position drills
Yeah.
without rest. Like
Yep.
you're in a usually you have 8 or 9 guys at linebacker, or D line, you have 12 or 13 guys. They had one. And so they had JT and they Jack Sawyer, both of those guys work out with Mike. And I thought both those guys looked really good as well. And that's cool for them to kind of get out in front of the scouts so people can kind of see how they move as well.
No, that first look is important, right? And then, like, you see on social media where people are like, "Oh, Marv hasn't worked out in front of NFL personnel." Well, he did a year ago, and he looked really
Yeah.
good when he did, right? And so, like, I think for these guys, it does plant that seed. And they were both guys that could have come out this year and decided that it was in their best interest to continue to develop, which I think was the right decision for either one of them. But just kind of having that baseline and teams getting familiar, and again, seeing these big athletes look good, it's a great thing for them.
And I think it's important for those guys, like they can get out there, like you said, get some exposure and understanding, like I came back, people are seeing me now. Now I got to pair this up with some production on the field, but there's going to be a lot of buzz around those guys coming in because they definitely looked the part and they moved really well. And by the way, they looked great in practice thus far. Moving forward, the Big Ten's in a good spot. SEC's in a good spot. Big 12, like they're doing all right. They've done the best they can given who's left and what their conference looks like. The ACC, signed this grant of rights deal like 3 or 4 years ago. It goes all the way through 2036. Like there's still 12 years left on it. FSU pushing back. Now Clemson hopping in on a lawsuit against the ACC, trying to find a way to get out of the grant of rights and the 140 million withdrawal penalty, which I don't know if you've heard about this, Joshua. Like the grant of rights is kept. It's basically the Declaration of Independence. They
Right.
keep it at the ACC headquarters. You can only
can't
look at
run
it
off copies. You can't see it. They won't electronically mail it to you. You have to show up to see it.
So, I mean, how long do you think the ACC is together is currently comprised?
2 years max. I don't give it very long, right? And like, I mean, what Florida State did, I thought they were pretty aggressive. And then Clemson comes in and they're pretty much like, yeah, we're a Florida State advocate. Like when you guys decided to countersue Florida State, we didn't vote on that. We didn't authorize it. We didn't like the fact that you did that. Oh, by the way, this buyout penalty is fraudulent because Notre Dame's got to pay the same thing if they want out for their other sports, but their real cash cow doesn't even participate in this conference. Like it's not even a real penalty. You guys just came up with a number and slapped it in there. Like they came out just everything on the table and they're trying to see what sticks in court. And quite frankly, I understand why they're in that position because you're looking at what's going on. And if you're Clemson, if you're Florida State, both schools are top 18 in viewership on over like a 10-year span. We're not doing this. We're not sticking around if it doesn't financially benefit us.
Well, they're dragging Virginia, like Georgia Tech, like a lot of these schools. You look around, it's like, well, we provide probably value that's maybe not all the way to like the big dogs in the SEC and the Big Ten, but we're a lot closer to that than we are to the call them the drag, like schools that maybe don't care as much. So they're pulling them along. And so I completely understand where they're coming from because they realize like the longer you get down this road, it's going to get wider and wider. So you gotta cut back and get right on the right track here sooner rather than later. Commissioner Phillips down there in the AC, he's trying to keep this thing together. Plus the addition, I don't know if like adding Stanford and Cal and like SM, like I don't think that that's really going to help anybody's arguments with any of this stuff either. So a lot of issues there. We'll keep you posted on that as more comes to break with, as I'm sure it will throughout the summer, because that's when the good stuff always happens. All right, coming up, we've got our favorite segment, Tailgate Talk. We answer your questions, and I'm sure we're going to have a lot about the offense, the O-line, the quarterbacks. We'll get into all those here next on the Bobby Carpenter Show. All right, welcome back into the show, and it's our favorite segment each and every week. We do Tailgate Talk, where we answer your questions. It's brought to you by the Tipico Sportsbook. They're going to change the way you bet with their new Tipico Rewards program. The more you bet, the more you earn, the more you win. And to celebrate this, Big Play is holding our own company-wide contest to see which of our shows can climb that leaderboard and prove they're the best bettors right here at Big Play. The winning show may even give out some bet credits to their listeners each month. So be sure to follow along with your favorite Big Play personalities, that includes Joshua and I, on social media to lock in your bets with us all week long. Heck, we've got some great stuff coming up. Got March Madness. We'll throw out all kinds of things there for you. Remember, must be 21 years old. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. All right, Joshua, first question coming at us from Chris E. We talked about last week with Tony Alford leaving. You looked at some of the potential coaches that were out there. Maybe some have kind of faded away, including like DeMarco Murray. Said everything has kind of gone gone silent on filling the running back coach position. Could you provide any insight? Who do you feel has potentially the inside track?
Yeah, this one is a little bit of a question mark still for me. And you mentioned some of the options out there. I know, Gillespie was a name that was floating around early on. I haven't heard a ton on that track. I don't know if you have either. You mentioned DeMarco Murray. I've been told rumors that there have been conversations with Stan Drayton, but there was a buyout question. The Notre Dame running back coach, his name had popped up in conversations. I think there might have been a question there as well in terms of buyout. So I know they're doing due diligence, and it is an attractive job. It's just a hard time, I think, to try to find a running back coach. A lot of these schools are engrossed in spring ball. But I would rather see Ryan Day and Ohio State take their time and really comb through options rather than just hire a guy just because he wants to be there.
Well, what's interesting too is, I think this speaks to the calendar of college football, where you have to hire a coach immediately after the season because of recruiting and different things, and you got to get stuff squared away. Well, now you're in spring ball, but Chip Kelly here, at practice on Saturday, Chip is working with the quarterbacks. Ryan's then working with the running backs. And so there's no urgency really for them to do that, to get somebody in here haphazardly. I think Ryan would like to have somebody hired before the end of spring. I don't think it's like mission critical potentially for that to be the case now, because like you said, there's that time, and there's outside of like the transfer portal, which none of these running backs you feel like are probably leaving. Me, Dallin Hayden potentially, but he's been getting plenty of run. That make sure you get the right guy and not just someone quick.
Well, here's the other part. Now I'll ask you this question. So let's say they hired a guy tomorrow. How involved is he going to be in going out there and teaching guys scheme right away, right? Like there's a learning curve that comes to being a coach, and he's got to learn the terminology in the playbook and the coaching points that they like to emphasize. So it's not like if they hired a guy tomorrow, you're going to see him out there like, one of the top coaches on the staff. Like he's got to come in, and that's usually why the offseason exists. So those guys can pick up what they're doing too.
All right, so here's another one coming from Chris Roberts. Might be a little trolly, but it's okay. General, has Ohio done enough to beat the powerhouse that Michigan has built? And I feel like that might be coming from someone who might be a Michigan fan, which is great. But I'll say this, and it's great because Ryan Day's I think he's started to develop a pretty solid relationship with Coach Tressel. And he talks about how he's going to, the special teams leaning into him for a little guidance there, maybe looking at running back coaches and different things. And Tress was actually at practice on Saturday, spoke to the team afterwards. And, Ryan introduces him, references the banners, references him being 9-1 against Michigan. And it was awesome, like listening to Tress speak to the team post-practice, talking about, the things that you could do every day, the things that you were grateful for every day, being a Buckeye, and like how important that is. Malcolm Jenkins spoke to the team on Thursday, and Tress referenced like something that he taught Malcolm, which what are the things you can focus on that don't take talent? And then having the relentless pursuit of it every day in the spring. You can't win the national title in the spring, but you can lose it. And I think that stuff is that connectivity and pulling that together. I feel like it's really going to pay some big dividends, Joshua.
I think it's phenomenal. And I know a lot of people on the outside of the program probably wanted to see something like this, but Ryan Day obviously understands the moment and the pressure that exists there. And so he's leveraging and leaning on, some of the great names and the great personalities that have come through. And Tress is one of my favorite people from the standpoint of he is an introspective guy who forces you to do the same thing. And I think that leads to growth. Now, to answer this question, have they done enough? I don't know. And quite frankly, it doesn't matter right now because they don't play tomorrow. But they're doing everything they should be doing up to this point to prepare themselves. And that's the thing that I think is important. You mentioned the competition that you've seen firsthand at practice. I think all that matters. Bringing guys back, I think that matters. What they've done with the roster, I think it matters. And so ultimately, they're going to put themselves in the best position possible.
It was awesome. He referenced, you look at, CJ Stroud and all these guys that are coming back and the brotherhood that it is and how grateful you are ultimately for that. And you probably realize that, like Steele talked about earlier, you realize it probably a little more after you're gone than even when you're there. And so trying to relay that to those players and understand it is very, very critical, but it's exciting as well. So we're going to wrap up the show here. Ohio State, they've got a new men's basketball coach. They're making a little noise here in the NIT. We'll discuss that next here on the Bobby Carpenter Show. Final segment of the program, and Ohio State, well, they've got a new men's basketball coach, and it's not all that different than the route that Gene Smith took in hiring Ryan Day as the football coach. Ross Bjork coming in, kind of spearheading the charge, as he will be the guy here moving forward. And they land on Jake Diebler, guy who didn't play at Ohio State, but his brother did. He was the interim coach, and they looked pretty darn good, Joshua, and they might be even making a little bit of a run in the NIT.
Yeah, I mean, he's been on that bench for a while, so it's a guy who knows what it means to be at Ohio State. He's a guy who's from the state. He's got some recruiting chops. I'm really excited about it. I like Chris Holtman, and I know you've got a relationship with him. I did as well. I thought he was a phenomenal guy, but it certainly was the time to move on. And now I feel like I'm going to get back invested in the basketball team. A personal fault of mine. When the basketball team's not good, I completely shut it off because they get my blood pressure higher than when I'm watching football games. But I'm looking forward to this guy. They have a new energy. Feels like he's, rotation got deeper with him. Like, I'm super excited to see where this program goes.
They've got that BBE, Josh, big Buckeye energy that
There we
they've been
go.
looking forward to. It's awesome to see. Plus, got the women maybe making a little bit of a run here. So
Yeah.
excited to watch that. They smoked Maine, so hopefully continue some of that momentum moving forward as well.
Yeah, it's been exciting to watch them too. And Coach McGuff, I think, is phenomenal. He's got those young ladies playing the game the right way. And I would love to see a little run here. They went toe-to-toe with Iowa in the regular season, got one of the matchups there. Didn't get it at the end of the regular season. We know they're one of the top teams, so I think they could replicate a little bit of magic here in March.
Yeah, there's a lot going on, but listen, man, it's a great show. Steel Chambers, fantastic. Talked a little bit about Tress, which I always love doing. A little bit of offensive line, defensive moves, especially with Sonny Styles, how some of these guys look. It was absolutely tremendous. And also, Joshua, congratulations again. First time father. Congratulations to your parents, first time grandparents. I know they're excited. Big week next week. More info coming here on the Bobby Carpenter Show.